Hello. Last week I covered Americas, and now I'm going to be covering EMEA. I'll be going over every roster based on the leaks, reports, and rumors and such, then ranking them in a tier list. I'll be doing Pacific after this, and then China to end it. So let's go. Starting with BBL, they have overhauled their entire roster from last year, and now their new five is Loon, Yumpy, Sociably, Profek, and Chiwa. Now, I am relatively unfamiliar with the new players, which means all other than Yumpy. But this team did compete in the Red Bull Homeground EMEA LCQ, and people were quite impressed with this team's macro, their prep, only having like a week of practice. I also did see Loon compete in that Spotlight tournament, I think, and I was really impressed with his mechanics. Yumpy IGLing seems pretty untrustworthy. I'm gonna have to see it to believe it, but people are optimistic about this team. Time will only tell if going international was the move. I will go B tier because I'm a big fan of the fact that they brought in a lot of great tier 2 prospects with having a vet as the IGL. I think that philosophy of building a roster is really smart. So I'll go B tier. Moving on to Fnatic, they had possibly the biggest news of the offseason with Durka no longer being in the orange and black. And they've also released Hero as they're getting Leo back for this season. Important to note that they signed Sayonara, a 16-year-old like prodigy for the offseason in place of him, I believe. And to replace Durka, they've also got Kayak, who was on Apeks, the team that won EMEA Ascension. Now, Fnatic has scouted brilliant talent before. They did that with Leo. They did that with Alfear when he was basically a nobody in the global scale, and he became one of the best players in the world. But they're getting a completely different duelist player. While Durka was really consistent and was kind of a Lanimal, he always performed better on LAN than he did online or in domestics. They're getting a really young prospect who's shown a bit of nerve issues in Ascension. And I don't even know who's playing Duelist and who's playing Sentinel, because Kayak was seen on Ranked playing Sentinel, and God knows that Fnatic players like people looking at their tracker stats. But they still have a really good core, and if there'd be any EMEA team to bring out the best in a young duelist prospect, it'd be Fnatic. I'm debating whether S tier or A tier. I'll go S tier. I think a fresh new look will bring out the best of this team. Moving on to Foot, they've made one change, replacing CNED with this guy named Sus, who looks like the good old crack duelist prodigy. I'm sure people know him a lot better than I do. He last played for a team called Howl Esports, who placed second in Challengers Turkey Split 2, ultimately losing to this team called Pacific, who you may know as the runners-up to EMEA Ascension. In Challengers Turkey Split 2, he did lead all players in ACS with 278.8 and average damage per round with 183, and kills per round with 0.98. And he was really high up on the rest of those statistics, like KD, first kills per round. So on the surface, this guy is really good. He's certainly an upgrade over CNED. I'm just not sure I agree with this team's playstyle. Their ideas are pretty out there, and I kind of think they overperformed last year. I don't know. I don't think a cracked duelist is gonna really save this team or bring them an international trophy. I'll put them even below BBL, but this team does still have talent, so I'm keeping them B tier. Moving on to GX, they have made 3 changes, bringing in Runner, Tamazi, and Westside in place of Fatinho, Redgar, and Hoodie. And they also played with Famsi for half of Split 2. This team is all over the place. And when I say all over the place, I mean in one exact spot. They're all duelist players. And Cloud was playing Raze during the Chamber meta, so I don't want to hear it. Part of the roster did compete in the Spotlight series. I think Runner competed in some games, Purpo competed in some games, and Westside competed in some games. I was impressed by Purpo. I think he got kind of thrown into the worst situation possible last year, and there's really nowhere to go but up. And we know Tamazi can be a really good player. Westside, I don't know much about the kid, but he looked fine in the Spotlight series. And Runner didn't look bad on Vitality. He just didn't live up to expectations. I'm just really confused. C tier? I mean, they have talent. But I just don't know. I really don't. Moving on to Team Heretics. They have not changed their starting roster at all. So their 5 players for hopefully the entire year are going to be Miniboo, Voot, Brienz, Boo, and Benji Fishy. They have released their stand-in Patatek, who is standing in for both Voot and Miniboo for their respective reasons. And I think if I praise this team too much, they're going to be set up for failure. But they have international experience. That would be my main gripe on them, is that it's a really young core. Maybe the nerves will get to them, but they've gotten 2 grand finals at international tournaments this year. The Star Duelist's older brother is their IGL. I hope they solidify a role for Voot. He was kind of playing quite a bit towards the end of the year. He was playing some Omen, he was playing some Gecko, and I felt this team wasn't fully optimized in time for champs. But this team with a really good coaching staff, really good players, I'm gonna put them S tier. Moving on to Karmine Corp, this is really interesting. Because they've gotten rid of Narrate, Magnum, Shin, and Tamaji, and have gained Sadak, Avez, Elite, and Segetsu. Some big names here. Sadak, people call him the greatest IGL that Valorant's ever had, has taken multiple cores very far in international tournaments, won a world champion with the rawest form of Ospas and less. And I think the main gripe on this team was their mid-rounding. It feels like sometimes the calls for this team were questionable, and now that's been fixed, hopefully. And Segetsu, the player of Masters Copenhagen, coming on to another mixed roster. I think the Mad needs a fresh start. I feel like that EU version of FPX transitioning over to NAVI kind of stagnated them to where they didn't really know what to do. And when they fired Doom Bros, their morale heavily plummeted. They look like the worst team in the world in Stage 2. And I am going to cut Segetsu a lot of slack there. Because it's not just one piece that takes an entire team down. Elite was on BBL last year, and I was really impressed with his mechanics. This man single-handedly, well, not single-handedly, they still had Kushner, but this man made BBL look like the best team in EMEA. They're killing gods left and right. It just kind of choked away Split 1. I'd love to see what this man will do in a fresh start. And Avez, I'm going to be frank, I know next to nothing about this guy. But I think the addition of him is a great impact for the scene as a whole, because he's Egyptian. And at the tier 1 level, we haven't really seen anything from Mina. So this is huge for them. I will watch more film on the guy in-game, but overall I'm pretty excited for this team. Obviously I have Martine, who showed incredibly great peaks. Maybe not S tier yet, but A tier on paper. For Koi, they have kept Grabinho and Shados and added Filu, Flya, and Solkis in place of Camo, Starkso, and Shadow. I'm theoretically slamming my desk. And I don't know much about Filu, but he was on a team called Desire, who made EMEA Ascension, and his stats look really good. In 206 rounds, he averaged 247.9 ACS, 1.19 KD, but he has 0.88 kills per round 157 ADR, 0.23 first kills per round, which is really good. And overall, he was just a star player on that Desire team. The addition of Flya is kind of crazy, because you're adding a tier 2 IGL from a different region who didn't even make Ascension in their region. But Flya was IGLing MXS, Moistech Shopify that is, and they were doing really well throughout the entire year. And I think Flya is pretty good. This is just a strange addition. And they've added Solkus as well, who, in my opinion, revived the absolute hell out of his career with his time on Apeks. People were cramming on the guy hard when he was on Team Liquid, especially his last years. But he goes on Apeks and looks like their best player a lot of the time. Not sure I love how the guy plays Sova, but that could be just team-based and not his own ideology. This team could be exciting next year. They kept their 2 best players, got their other 3 from tier 2. I'm inclined to put them at B tier, above BBL. For Team Liquid, they have replaced Mystic, Yumpy, and Enzo with Camo, who played on Koi, Kamek, who was on Job Life, and he also stood in for Fnatic in a few games in 2023, if you remember that, and Patatek, who is the super stand-in for Team Heretics. I'm just going to get out of the way right away that Patatek needs PR training, and Camo is a brand risk. That's what I'll say. As players, I think Patatek looked nice with his supportive util when he was standing in for Team Heretics, and I think Camo showed some flashes of his talent, and Kamek looked good on Job Life last year. Apparently, Kiko is switching to the controller role, and I have no idea how that's going to work out for him. And with Nats, I love the guy to death, but I'm not sure I like his IGLing that much. I'm not sure I trust this team completely. Seems like a bit of a mess. Not sure how Nats or Kiko is going to clash with these guys. I don't know. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I'll put them above GX. C tier. NAVI. They have added Koala Noob, who played on M80 last year, who placed second in America's Ascension. Ruxic, who played on Fireflux, and Hero, who stood in for Fnatic last year. It's also important to note that they're adding Happy, who is the head coach on M80, for Koala Noob. He has a very glaring issue in his game, and it's that he doesn't play Raze or Neon, to my knowledge, or he doesn't feel comfortable with them. He's more of a Jet Yoru player, but he is a very skilled opper, and from what I see, he's a pretty smart opper as well. He doesn't overextend really, and he seems to be a good decision maker. His agent pool is just limited. For Ruxic, I don't know much about him. Looks like he was the best player on every iteration of that Fireflux team, and he was playing smokes for them. And I think Hero kind of held his own while he was with Fnatic. He was quite a clutch player for the team. He was playing multiple different roles. There are some moments of inexperience, especially on a certain map where you can fall off the edge and die, but he looks good. We all know Xiao's a really good player. He's just a consistent beast, whether it's that recon initiator or smokes player. I really don't know what some of the roles are going to look like, but individually, these are really good players. Even Angel. Sometimes. I don't know. I'm kind of over this, if I'm honest. Put them over Team Liquid, I guess. Vitality made the signing of the offseason so far. We don't know where Osboss is going, but they have signed Durka and Less in place of Runner and Sender. And I want to be excited for this team. We know Dirk is really consistent, although he doesn't play Neon, but he's been doing it in ranked, I think. Kix is one of the better pure initiators I've seen lately. We all know Trex is really good. We all know Less is really good. But there seems to be a running theme with Safe, where it's like, hey, Safe, did you have your best performances in some time? Let's sign a duelist player to take your spot while you play a different role and don't look as good. I don't know. Safe's always been best on duelist, but they have signed better players, and I am quite excited for this team. And Safe is IGLing, I believe. And despite everything I said, I think this team will be okay. Well, not just okay. I think this team will be great. I'm not going to put them S tier like everyone wants me to. I'll put them A tier above Karmine Corp. Gentlemates have essentially overhauled the roster. Kadabra did play in Split 2, and he is joined by Click, who is on SK Gaming, Zipan, who is on NAVI, Robbie BK, who is the IGL on Job Life, and Mini, who is on Go Next Esports. Job Life and Go Next Esports were in the EMEA Ascension tournament, and Mini especially, I was incredibly impressed with him. His fragging, he was pulling off insane clutches, and he was the best player on that Go Next team. And the extent of my knowledge of Robbie BK is that he was the IGL that led a Job Life team to an Ascension spot, and he was very close to a playoff spot, but apparently his duelist was having a lot of connection issues, which cost them some rounds. And whether you want to blame it on that or not, he still brought them pretty far. Zipan's always been a decent player for that FPX core turn NAVI, but Click is the big one, because as soon as the offseason started, everybody on EMEA Valorant Twitter was begging for this guy to get picked up by a tier 1 team. And I'm sure you already have a scope on how much I watch this region, so it probably won't surprise you that much to say I haven't seen this guy play that much. But I'm excited about these splash signings of Click and Mini. Funny enough, Kadabra is someone I might know even less than these players. And he's been on this team for a split. Robbie BK is a handsome man. Anyways, from what people have been telling me, I'm inclined to put this team A tier. I think I'm most excited about this team, well, other than Karmine Corp, but out of the rest of the teams with overhauled rosters, I'm excited for this one more than any. Now to Apeks, the only team in this region that, to my knowledge, has an incomplete roster. Their two best players, Kayak and Soulcast, has been bought out by other teams. Reportedly replaced them with Hoodie. The two names that are most likely for their duelist slot, Lime, who was on Focus last year, and Fatinho, who was on Giants for the last couple years. Now that's just the two names that are most likely, so they could be signing someone else for all I know. I think Fatinho is a better player than Lime, but at the same time, Lime is inexperienced, so it could be something he just needs to shake off, because he didn't look particularly impressive in the games he has played with Apeks as a stand-in in EMEA LCQ. Losing your two best players hurts. But Avova had a return to form last year. Hype looks really good. Mulsi's IGLing in Ascension, I'll be honest, it was a bit suspect. I didn't love everything that I was seeing. And for how Ascension worked, it's really unfortunate that they lost their two best players, and has the designation, according to me, as the worst EMEA team, and that's why I'm placing them in D tier. So this is my EMEA tier list. I'll get to Pacific quicker than I did EMEA. Sorry this took so long. Hopefully the audio quality is better than it's been before. And sorry I haven't been doing VOD reviews. To be honest, I'm kind of using these tier list videos as getting used to this whole YouTube thing. So after I finish this, I promise I'll get some VOD review videos out. But I will be covering all kinds of VCT content as well. And yeah, that's all for me. Thanks so much, and I'm outie.